Welcome to the Unemployable Podcast with your host, Sam Cottle. The Unemployable Podcast is about so many things. Mostly it's about breaking away from the employee mindset. The employee mindset is the ability to blame your superior for your happiness, your success, your opportunities. And it's really just taking control of your life and taking ownership of your future. Today, I have a great guest with us, Shelby Johnson, Shelby Osborne Johnson.
Woo!
I first got exposed to Shelby in a kind of a unique way, but I want to just say hi, Shelby, first of all. Thank you for
Hi!
joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're here for episode number 8.
Whoop, whoop.
This won't be published for like 4 weeks, though, so it's kind of nice.
That's fine.
Hopefully, it'll be published around the time I'm on yours.
Cool. Perfect.
That's what my goal is, so that I can like make Instagram stories like I'm on this podcast and she was just on mine.
Yeah,
That
do the whole
cross promotion is
switcheroo
valuable.
there. Yeah.
So I feel like Shelby fits the definition of unemployable very concisely. And I heard Shelby first on the Bigger Pockets podcast. It's a big real estate investing podcast. And she was a guest on there talking about her journey into real estate investing. And I started following her on Instagram. I just kind of engaged with you a little bit on Instagram, I think. You mentioned something about coaching, and then I hired you to do a couple of coaching sessions because I was starting to work with more investors and just kind of wading into some new territory and just wanted a little bit of advice. I'm also just the kind of person that will just like try a coach out.
Yeah.
I love that. Like I pay my coach like a lot of money now, and it's so worth it to me. I realize it's not worth it to some people. Do you have a performance coach
No, I don't. And
or like
that's
a business
something-
coach?
No, I was talking to Aaron Amugastagi the other day because I look up to him a lot. I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
And
And he's the host of the Real Estate Rockstars podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And I was telling him, like, because he asked me, he's like, what's your 5-year vision, Shelby? Like, what do you want out of life? And I was like, fuck, Aaron. Like, I don't, like, I have this, like, foggy, vision of what it is. But he was, like, the first person to, like, really ask me those questions and dig in because normally it's the reverse. Normally I'm doing that to someone. So to loop it back to coaching, like, I don't have one, but I think that that's something that I'll probably want to do in the future.
Okay. Let me ask you a further out question before we get into your history. 10 years from now, like what's a day like for you 10 years from now in this like fantasy world?
Dude, you're so funny because I literally just told you that 5 years was foggy. So you're like, yeah, let's just jump to 10 and tell me.
Let it be like fantasy. So for me, 10 years from now, it's, middle of the summer. I'm waking up in southern Italy. And I'm there with my family for 4 months. And we're just going to go like see some art for the day. And I'll get up and work a little bit remotely. Like that, I can like go down that rabbit trail really easily.
Yeah.
So what is that for you?
Okay. Different than yours. So Washington State is where we want to move. We're actually moving next year.
Yeah. Okay.
And in 10 years, I'd love to be in the house that I found on Zillow. That won't be the house. We're going to build our own, variation of that. And it will be a mix between me doing the things that I know that I should be doing to be like the optimal version of myself. And so like the Miracle Morning that I love so much and CrossFit and, my own personal self-development time, but also then time with family. Because we want to have kind of like a fucking slew of kids. Like we're thinking like 4. Okay. So there will be kids and then nature because we're going to live on like acreage and the Washington trees are just so tall and beautiful and wonderful.
Sure.
But then also like I love working. Like I love that feeling of when you are really bought in to whatever you're working on and you wake up with energy because you're just fucking excited. And then the big piece of that too is like always paying attention to like the projects that my curiosity is like pulling me towards because that's something that I didn't do for a while and I just like pushed through, grind, hustle because I should be doing these things. Whatever I feel like.
Word in there.
Oh, I fucking hate the should word. Yeah. But like being really conscious of what I'm working on because if I'm working on the right things, like I wake up on fire in the mornings, like excited to attack it. So that's what the vision looks like. Like I am a workhorse. And so I love to be working, and I just need to make sure that I'm always working on something that feels like it's an authentic fit for wherever I
Yeah.
am in life, if that makes sense.
Okay, so 10 years from now, it's much, I mean, the setting is there,
Yeah.
but it's much more of like what it feels like.
Yeah. Which is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
do now.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
So it's like, I mean, who knows the person that I'll be in 10 years, because I look back 5 years ago and I don't even know that person who I used
Yeah.
to be.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So who knows, but
Sure.
I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Okay, well, do a quick like 5 minute background. I love that it doesn't have to be about real estate, but just kind of like
Okay.
how did you get to where you are?
How did I get to where I am? Well, I think a lot of it started with my upbringing. I know 5 minutes. So I was born on this date. No, but for real though, like my dad was
Yeah.
in the army, and we grew up in a military family. We moved every single year. So I was the new kid in school every single year. I had to quickly make friends and integrate into whatever culture that I
Yeah.
was in. I also was a competitive gymnast once we finally stopped moving. And I think that being in the gym for you know this, being in the gym
Yeah.
for 5 hours a day
Oh, it's the
as a
best.
kid, it really, I mean, dude, it taught me so much of who I am today about like you have to get back up. You have to be able to mentally overcome fears and push past pain. Like
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
these suffering. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
learned how to suffer really well
Yeah.
as a kid.
Or even like
Um,
you have to break down like a complex routine into pieces because you have to like work on a piece of it, not the whole thing.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And
Yeah.
reps. That's another
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
too. Like I see all the time people like don't know how to put in reps to get
Hmm.
good, where it's like
Yeah.
so natural. Of course I have to do this 100 times before I'm even able to do it, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
So, yeah. And then ROTC in college too. I needed someone to pay
Okay.
for college, and that's why I did ROTC. My dad pushed a little
Yeah.
bit on that.
Okay.
And then Army for 6 years, and out of the Army in 2018 into real estate as a full-time investor was the intent, but it also became agent. Did that
Yeah.
side by side over the
Sure.
next years, and here we are. I don't know. Pick where you
No,
want
that's
to
great.
detail in.
I'll pick all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah,
so I wanted to start kind of where you are and then go back a little bit too.
sure.
So, but
Yeah,
Army ROTC, this is just me not knowing. Do you
yeah.
have to join after?
Dude, yeah. Yeah, they pay
Okay.
for 4 years in exchange for 4 years of your service.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it
I mean,
depends on what
it's a pretty
scholarship.
good deal.
Dude, I mean, it's a great deal for not having
Yeah.
like suffocating college debt like so many people do.
Yeah. I mean, I
Um,
convinced my employer to pay for my college, so there's
oh, fuck
there's
yeah.
ways. There's ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also,
Yeah.
I mean, it taught me out like the army, like no regrets, because I learned so much of what I
Yeah.
use every single day through those 6 years. So,
Sure. That's awesome. Okay, so gymnastics.
yeah.
As I was driving to my office this morning, I was like, when did I start gymnastics? The thing is, whenever you're doing those kind of things as a kid, you're not like, oh, I need to remember these details because I'm going to tell
Yeah.
stories about it. When I'm
Right.
like, when I start telling stories, there's like this phase of life you suddenly just start telling stories in your 30s.
Totally.
Okay, so
We're
how
there.
old were you when you started?
I started like classes, like basic, like,
Yeah.
when I was like 3.
Okay.
But because we moved every year, it wasn't until 7th grade that we stopped moving. And so it was 7th grade where I could go in and say, hey, like, I love this shit so much and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
here. Can I join the team? And at this point, like, I had only periodically done class. Like, we'd even lived places where they didn't have gymnastics available. So it was very
Sure.
sporadic. And when I was like 11, and I show up to like try out for the team, and like
Yeah.
I'm years behind. Like there's how gymnastics is usually, like if you're competitive, they start you young. You're
Yeah,
doing
you're
like,
super far behind. Yeah.
I was so far behind. But they're like, yeah, sure, we'll take you, I guess. And yeah, I did level 5 that first year, and won a lot of shit, and then skipped level 6 next year and went to level 7 and won a lot of shit, and then like state number 1, on
Yeah.
all around and 2 different events, second place in the other 2 events. And then level 8, level 9, and at level 9 is where I broke my ankle and I grew 6 inches in the same year.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that kind of stopped the gymnastics side, but I did like tumbling and trampoline. So
Yeah.
I did that
So
for a
you
little
were
while.
were there age limitations too? So were you like 16 at that point?
No, I think I was 15
Okay.
when I stopped doing like the team gymnastics, all four
Yeah.
events.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started when I was 5 or 6, and it's funny. My history is so different than yours. I I grew up in a super small town. Like we moved once, and it was like across town. You know what I mean?
A big move.
And yeah, big move. I was sad because we moved from a place that had 22 acres to a place that had a pool, and I think I would just wanted the land instead of the pool. My card filled up on my camera. So there was one gym there, small town, like 9,000 people, and we every time we would drive past it, I'd be like, I want to do that. I was
Yeah.
5 or 6. My daughter's almost 5, so I relate. Like kids are like, "What's that? I want to go there." So one day my mom was like, "All right, we're going in." So it's like you just joined this little class, and then the coach came up to me afterward and was like, "Hey, would you want to join the team?" And I was like terrified of this big muscly guy. First of
Yeah.
all, the other like guys on the team came up and they're like, "No, like this is super fun. Like we love it because of this." And so the next day I joined the team practices,
Nice.
and it was
Right.
like
Right out the
the
gate.
the next day I'm like learning how to do a back handspring. Like that's like day 1, day 2. And then, similar kind of path is just super competitive. And in Oklahoma, like gymnastics is like a big deal. A lot of college athletes come from there. And so and a lot of Olympians. So like at the first meet I was at 2 months later, there was an older guy there named Raj. And I was like, dang, this guy's like, I was just like enamored by him.
Yeah.
And he was on the Olympic team 2 years later.
That's fucking nuts.
I watched him on TV. I'm like, these feel like my peers. This is so strange. So
Yeah.
that was that's what I was had in my mind. And gymnastics is kind of like Formula One. It's like 10 people make it to the top, and then they don't even. But it's not like Formula One because they don't make any money.
Yeah.
So it was a strange thing, and I mean I have just so many memories of that. But it similar to you, like it just taught me whatever I'm curious in, like chasing that is so valuable.
Totally.
And even if I'm curious in it, doesn't mean I'm going to be good at it. Like just because I'm curious, just means that there's some momentum. So just follow the momentum and curiosity, and you'll get better at it.
Totally.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
gymnastics, and I talk about it
Same.
all the time now.
Well, I mean, and that, but besides the mental piece of it, also the physical
Yeah.
piece is so fucking cool.
I know, that's awesome.
What do you do now to work out?
I'm mostly doing powerlifting now, but I've done a lot of CrossFit too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. CrossFit is such a natural fit. It's like day
Yeah.
one of CrossFit. They're like, here's a muscle up. And I'm like, oh, you do it like this? And they're
Yeah.
like, fuck you.
Right. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
my coaches was like, have you done ring muscle ups? I'm like, no. And everybody's like, how long do you think it'll take you? And my coach was like, I bet I can get him to do it in 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, we got there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But yeah, my body just isn't the same as it used to be either. But you
That's
still have that very
starting to feel
kinesthetic
it.
awareness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That you realize that other people just don't have. It's easy to assume everybody kind of has that, but they just don't.
Right. Yeah, I'm when kids do come, it's like all of them will be at least in the preschool. Get your, your agility
Yeah.
and your body awareness and some balance, some
Yeah.
strength, and then go do whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah. So I taught kids CrossFit for a while at my gym,
Cool.
and mostly because I was not working that much last year, just because I didn't want to, and
Yeah.
because my son was born, he turned 1 in December, so that first year of his life, I worked 30 hours a week, and I'm just like, I'll just make less money, who cares?
Yeah.
And I started teaching kids CrossFit, and my daughter would go while she was 4, and a year later, she doesn't go anymore, but her physical awareness and strength is just so intense,
Yeah.
and just
Love
confidence
that.
too. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, the confidence. It's a big piece.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah. So you want to have a bunch of kids. We want to have a few more too.
Cool.
But I want to go into 5 pillars because this is something about you that stands out to me in a few different ways. First of all, you started a team. I'm like, why did you start a team? That's a dumb idea. Then, and we've talked about that some, but
Yeah.
you really, I love the way that you kind of broke out that model and just changed it, right? So now you have more of a revenue share style model
Totally.
as opposed to a typical team leadership model.
Yeah.
So like, talk us through that a little bit, like why you built it the way you did, and then why you changed it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first piece, when we say team, we're talking like the traditional Gary
Yeah.
Keller, millionaire real estate agent, seven levels, like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
I did it because which I feel like is very similar to a lot of agents. They're like, I'm crushing it as an individual agent. So
Yeah.
obviously the next natural step is to build a team, right? Fucking wrong.
And that's the only example you have, really.
Yeah,
It,
exactly. It's like
it,
that's especially I was in Keller Williams. So of
yeah.
course it's like this is what you do next, you know?
Yeah, and nobody's just telling you like, hey, you can do something completely different. Like, go be the
Totally.
example, be the new model. Nobody thinks like that in this industry.
Dude, exactly. But for me, it wasn't even honestly, it wasn't my idea. Do you know Mike Glassby
Yeah,
or Ruben Garcia? Okay,
I'm
so
familiar with them. Yeah.
at the time, so Mike was the first non-Shelby agent, you know, like on the Five Pillars, and he actually is the reason why Five Pillars exists because
Okay.
he's a fucking stud, and he was an investor my first year, and I met him like through the investor circuit. And I've always thought really highly of him, like right out the gate. And he calls me one day and he's like, hey, Shelby, like, I got a year left in the Army. I am going to get my license and I want to do what you're doing. Like, there's
Yeah.
teams, right? Like, let's, start a
Sure.
team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, oh my God, like he thinks I'm like, he wants to work with me. Like, fuck yeah, that's cool. And I'm like hyped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, fuck team, sure. Like none of this was really my own idea looking
Yeah.
back now. And we're buds. And I'm like, look what you fucking did.
Why
No,
did you
just
do this to me?
no, but honestly, no regrets about it all because as you can probably see my neon sign in the background, like I
Yeah.
am like full in Five Pillars, love it to fucking death, and would not be where I am today if we didn't go through those years of building out the
Yeah.
traditional team and the culture and the systems. And I've learned so much about who I am and who I want to be through
Sure.
those experiences. So no regrets.
What are the 5 pillars?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. So when we first started Five Pillars,
There should be 5 answers to that. It should be pretty straightforward.
well, I'm gonna make it a little longer than
Okay.
the very basic. So when we first started Five Pillars, it was literally just like a means to the end to an
Yeah.
end. I like knew we needed
Okay.
a team name. Like it was never gonna be like the Shelby Show because that's like
Yeah.
fucking mistake number one. People do
Yeah,
with
yeah.
teams. It's like you never build, if you want buy-in, you need to make it neutral.
Yeah.
And so like literally we're
Unless
just like,
you want to
oh,
like start a personality cult, like that's an option too.
yeah, which you could. But I feel strongly about
Yeah.
leaving the name
I like
on the
that too.
side. And so when we threw it together, we just like thought about, what fucking things do we like? And so, the 5 pillars, like we use the acronym NCAP because they encapsulate what we were trying to go for, which was
Boo.
education, which educating ourselves and our clients, networking, your net worth is your network, creativity, action, and perseverance. And so when we created this, our target, the thing we were trying to attract wasn't clear. Because at this point,
Yeah.
we're investors, we're also agents. So we're looking for clients, we're looking for other agents, we're looking for deals. And so it's just this
Yeah.
big all-encompassing, kind of thing. And so over time, we've actually very recently changed the 5 pillars to take what our core values was and make them into our 5 pillars and
Yeah.
change the target. Because at this point, I mean, we just talked a little bit about the change in the structure, but we're not trying as 5 pillars as a community, as a movement, we're not trying to attract clients. We're not trying to attract investors or deals. What we're trying to do, since 5 pillars has become a movement for agents to build real businesses and real wealth alongside their peers. So it's become a think tank for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And because of that, our 5 pillars have now changed to what we believe as business owners, as entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
to be our core values. So what they
So
are
I don't know.
now,
Yeah.
extreme ownership, feels so
Okay.
fucking big on this one. Problem solvers, growth mindset.
Hang on, I'm writing these down.
Oh shit, man.
Growth mindset. Gosh, these are great. What else?
Trustworthy and driven.
Are they in a specific order for you?
No,
Like an
besides
order of
extreme
importance?
ownership.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's so big is because like
Yeah.
with that traditional team, you know, when you're a startup, you have like the gritty, you know, the people right there with Mike Glassby, like we had a few other, we had like 5
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who were really bought in, you know, and
Sure.
created this giant wave of what 5 pillars was. But after
Yeah.
that initial wave, the people who are attracted to that traditional team with high splits and high,
Yeah.
you know, leverage
They're
are not,
employees.
they're fucking employees.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not who we want to be around. So
Yeah.
the extreme ownership piece is like in this movement where we are a think tank for entrepreneurs, you fucking own your own business. Like we're
Yeah.
here to provide the framework and people who are on the same path who you can bounce ideas off with and, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
grow alongside. But at the end of the day, you're your own fucking business, you know, owner.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
ownership is on your shoulders. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's hard though. I mean, so now your goal is to attract those people. Do you feel like they're there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when I say yeah, I mean like it's 80-20 principle all
Sure.
fucking
Yeah.
day.
Of course. Yeah.
We have like 115 people in our community now, and you know I just believe 80-20 across the board in everything. So like 20%
Yeah.
are show up and are building and growing and are everything that is 5 pillars, and then there's a lot of people who which that sounds shitty if they like listen to this, sorry guys, step it up. There's a lot of people who, you know, just aren't quite there yet, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe they're there in like one of the areas or two of the
Sure.
areas that they're working
Yeah.
on, like getting. And the thing is, sometimes you want to be around people, and I'm this way. I want to be around people that are ahead of me, right?
Absolutely.
I want
Yeah.
to be around people that actually push me in all these areas too, and
Totally.
not just like not only peers, but like
Right.
peers that are also ahead. I'm that's a
Yeah.
unique dynamic for me right now in business where it's just hard for me to find peers.
Yes.
And you and I've talked
Dude,
about
we
that
talked
before.
about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
totally talked about that. And one of the things that we did, do you know GoBundance?
Yeah.
Okay, so GoBundance, they have the idea of pods, right? If you're
Sure.
familiar. So for anyone who's not familiar, we have totally adopted that within our
Yeah.
community. And that's one of the things about the pod. So there's small groups of 4 to 5 people and
Sure.
generally peers. And when I say that, I mean, my goal is to put people together who have done equal levels of like self-development,
Yeah.
you know, and
Uh-huh.
have equal levels of motivation. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it's really cool that the groups have, you know, totally different strengths and weaknesses, and they're
Yeah.
able to be like a hyper, like a smaller think tank within the bigger community. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up 80-20, but oftentimes I feel like it's even more like 95-5.
Totally.
Yeah, where you have like a few people who are like, okay, you guys go lead these things. I want to build around you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's all
So-
really exciting though. Like I'm like lit up. Like I'm on fucking fire about it, which is totally
Yeah.
different. Last year I was burned the fuck out. And this year
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, one thing we were talking about yesterday is that you do podcasts and you speak at events, whatever it is, and it's just like this real estate cycle where
Totally.
like, you're teaching about like your journey in real estate, you're teaching newbies how to get started, you're doing all of that cycle, and so some of that sounds like you're actively just breaking out of that.
I feel like I am, and that's the thing I used to do. I used to try the same concept where 5 pillars used to try to be something for everyone. I
Yeah.
used to try to do that. Like I'm here
Sure.
to teach everyone, whether, you know, you're just getting started or whatever. And now at this point I'm like, if you're new, that's fine, but just know that like we move fast and we're not going to slow down.
Yeah.
Like you either fucking pick up your pace or it's fucking sucks to suck. You know, whereas like more I feel like I'm giving my energy more to the people who are showing up. And in turn, that brings me more energy.
Yeah, that's exciting. You got married recently, right?
I did. Yep. September of this past year.
Congratulations. September.
Thank you.
How's that
Yeah.
going so far?
I actually really like it. I'm glad to say that because it
Actually?
is forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because something that I really love about being married is that most of the people in my life, and hopefully maybe you can feel what I'm saying here. There's so many people based on the podcast and the speaking and the meetups and whatever, they view to be success that I've had so far. There's a lot of people who have like that Shelby like halo effect. Where it's like
they're
whatever,
yeah,
they're fucking impressed. And one of the coolest things about it is like Drake is not.
No. And he'll become less and less impressed over the years.
Dude, it's the best thing though, because like something that I'm also into right now is like paying attention to your feedback loops. Because if you only have people telling you like, you're great, you're great, you're great, it's like you're not improving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have like blind spots, but and I'm not saying that all he does is like, you're fucked up here, but it's like this really good feedback where it's like super constructive and it's helps me become a more well-rounded, better person, and I fucking love it.
Well, and over the years too, so I've been married 9 years now. Like my wife is such a mirror. Like she's so clearly shows me like how I'm projecting or like how I'm like doing anything. Like she's just there like showing me that. It's not even like her opinion. She's just like, hey, this is happening. And because we've like built this trust over years, and it's funny too. I've like seen her deliver a few babies, and it's like here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fucking cool. I love that. I'm excited
son was
for
born at home, and it was awesome. My daughter and I were there, like watching him be born, like literally like 3 feet away, like watching him come out. And I've like told people that, and they're like, "Your daughter's gonna be scarred." I'm like, "No, she thinks it's normal. Like she just only thinks this is normal now."
Yeah. Well, that's the things
funny.
with kids. They're whatever becomes normal, like you can maneuver that.
Right.
Says someone with no kids.
Yeah, you want kids though. You realize that it's chaos. It is its own shit show at every moment. And then you'll realize too, like you'll leave, and then they'll be like peaceful and calm for Drake. This happened to me this morning. My wife went out to breakfast with her mom, and it was just like peaceful. We lit the candle and had breakfast, and it was just
nice.
My daughter's like helping me with the baby a little bit, and it doesn't happen like that when it's just my wife.
Of course not.
Yeah. Okay, so we jumped all around, but I want to, let's see. This is why I like podcasts. I like to listen to podcasts like this where it doesn't all connect.
Yeah.
Do you ever listen to like a podcast and you're like, that's the conversation I want to be having?
Yes. Sometimes.
Can you think of one?
Well, I immediately actually imagined if I was, this is a bad example, but I thought of our podcast yesterday, like the one that I recorded, and that's like the type of conversation that I enjoy hearing on other podcasts too, where it's like, oh, this is, technically it was a real estate, agent podcast, but really it was like life and self-development, like, the stuff I'm obsessed with. So
yeah, so you want to be on the other side of that conversation. You want me to ask you those questions?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We can do whatever.
No, one thing that I really like to ask guests is to talk about success. You jumped into, out of the military, which has a very clearly defined path of success. Mm-hmm. You had been a competitive athlete, pretty clear like feedback loop of what success equals.
Yeah.
Jumped into real estate sales, pretty clear feedback loop of what success equals. How do you define success today?
Gosh, that is such a good question. And I'm still, like, I kind of am adjusting still every day, which I think is actually powerful because I used to not. I used to just be like achievement, like you said, very clear defined, like this is, but now it's way less clearly defined. It's a lot more on my own like energy. Like, am I acting as the person that I want to be? And not just that, but if I'm not, why not? Because normally it ties back to, I didn't fucking sleep enough last night. Like, I didn't go to bed on time. Like, I didn't get off my phone, at least an hour before trying to sleep. Or I ate like shit. or I
Yeah.
didn't do my fucking miracle morning. And then all of those things like feed into like me being an asshole or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think it's just like success is every day doing the little things that make me into the person that I want to be, like consistently. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does. So it's the input and the outcome.
Totally. It's more about
Yeah.
the inputs now than
Yeah.
it used to all be about the outputs.
You'll see that with kids too. It's like, sorry, I'm just talking about my kids. I'm
Dude,
that
it's
dad.
fine.
You just realize with kids, you can only control the inputs. Like I can only control like what I say right now and how I respond to this situation. And we're like very gentle parents, and we're like homeschooling our kids, that kind of life.
Yeah.
So it's just unique. You can only control the inputs, and
Yeah.
like, understand that like kids take a while to learn, and it reminds me that like I take a while to learn things too.
Yeah.
Like of course, I define success for myself, and I started this. I kind of wrote this definition when I got into real estate, mostly because I didn't want to just do the dumb like reverse engineer, like I want to make $1 million, and so then how many like calls do I need to make? You know how that
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
backward equation works.
totally. Yes.
From the beginning, I was like, that's kind of dumb. Let me think about it differently. So I defined it pretty emotionally. So success to me is feeling like calm and safe, being able to decide what I think about and work on throughout the day. And then just in general, like not being worried about money.
Yeah.
Now,
I
I'm
love
also
that.
a very ambitious person, and I want to make double the money every single month. You know what I mean? But
Totally.
it's not really so I can spend it all or talk about it. That's just like and I kind of compartmentalize that as like a different part of me. How do you kind of deal with that ambition? Because you're obviously ambitious and driven, and how do you kind of compartmentalize that?
I think I need a little more. What do you mean compartmentalize? Like you're saying, like my initial definition of success was very
Well,
like
how do you not define success by money?
it's taken time. I think
Yeah.
that I used to. I think that money goes along with that traditional
Yeah.
measure of what people think is successful. I think that a lot of it has come from reflection,
Hmm.
and literally paying attention to like what actually makes me feel the best. I don't like the term happy. But like what makes me feel good, and stripping away the ego, because kind of like we
Yeah.
talked about in the beginning, it's like when I was most burnt out, it was because I was doing all the things that I should be doing based
Yeah.
on society, based on the traditional paths
Yeah.
of real estate or the military or whatever the case may be. But then as soon as you can like strip yourself away from like the should and strip the ego away and know that it's okay not to have 1,000 doors if that's not what makes you feel the best.
Yeah.
Or it's okay not to make the most money because maybe there are things that are more valuable to you than money, and like
Yeah.
truly being honest with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see you're kind of on this path of even trusting yourself, which
Yeah,
is
regardless
instead
of
of others,
what.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So,
Rick Rubin, music producer, has a new book that came out, and so he's been on a lot of podcasts recently, and his book is called The Creative Way. But he tells these stories on these podcasts about like he just made the music that he liked. It wasn't like I think somebody else might like this. It
yeah,
wasn't even like I think this will perform well. It's like, no, I like it, and that's the only metric I care about.
yeah,
Here it is. Not like, do you like it? Like that wasn't even like a question to him. That's been so inspiring to me to just even like dial in my taste even more. And it's my taste in life, in success, in business, in whatever it is, right?
I totally agree, but I also think that I would not know my own tastes had I
Yeah.
not had those years of
Yeah,
chasing
yeah. Absolutely.
what I should be doing. Because that's what
Yeah.
I see a lot of times. It's like I try to have these conversations with people who are maybe just starting out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what do you think? Like, what
Yeah.
feels right to you? And they're like, I don't fucking know because they have no experience. They don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So
So, how many jobs have you had? I think this is why taste is easier for me, is because I've had so many jobs.
okay, what do you mean by job? You mean like employee? This is the unemployable podcast. You're talking about like employee. type of jobs?
I mean, yeah, it could be a business you started. I mean, you've probably had a couple different roles at Five Pillars, right?
I've
Um,
sure,
Before that,
okay.
you were an agent. Before that, you were
I was
in
in
the
the army,
military.
and
Yeah.
before that, I worked at Panera, and I also
Okay.
worked at Moe's, and I coached gymnastics.
So
So
10
that's
or
my
12, right?
history. Yeah, sure.
So most people, when they're having that conversation with you, they've had like two jobs.
Hmm.
So they've not like quit things. They don't know like I don't know.
Yeah,
Some of that I think like that taste gets refined by like saying like I tried this and it's not me, right?
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even in the army, actually, so, I categorize the army as one job. The army,
Yeah.
you move all the time. You have different
Sure.
positions all the time. You have different leadership who's coming in and out. So through that 6 years, I,
Yeah.
at least had 6 jobs.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when I got my real estate license, that was my 32nd job. I like got a motorcycle when I was 14 and just started working as much as I could. So I've like taken so much from each of those, even just like little lessons of like I know that I can quit and nobody
Oh,
cares, right?
that's my favorite. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. And I think that that's what you said too when you're like, yeah, when my son was born and I just chose, to work less and not make as much money. Like I
Yeah.
think that realization, like which that's a really calming thing for myself as well. It's like I know that if I want to make more money, I can. Like
Yeah.
I know how to do it. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to like actually take control of that though and feel like you're making a choice. Gosh. I don't even want to talk about real estate. I feel
We
like
don't have to.
that's what people need to hear. That's like a dilemma I'm in. So, I mostly have this YouTube channel that creates my real estate business. It's the only thing
Right.
that creates my real
It's
estate
very
business. We
cool.
get probably 15 to 20 leads a week from that. And they're like they come in as clients. Like you just have to fuck it up. Like they come in
Yeah.
like, "Sam, can we please work with you?" Like they
Right.
would sign a buyer broker agreement like right away. I always like
Yeah.
talk them out of it. Sometimes they ask me if they can. Like, sure. Um, but I'm at a point where like I would rather talk about YouTube than real estate, but I also
Hmm.
like don't even want to really talk about YouTube because it's become this thing that I'm like too good at. And let me clarify that because you probably have these things in your life too. It's the thing that I'm good at that now everybody else wants me to do for them, but I don't want to do it
Oh,
for them.
yeah. Yeah, which
What
is
kind of
really
things
funny
like that
because
have?
we're
Go ahead.
scheduled to have you on our team saying to talk about
Yeah,
YouTube. Literally
I know,
exhibit A.
but
Sorry.
now I need like a course to sell them
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah,
already
it's
in
true.
your downline, so I need to have something else to offer them. But yeah, it's become this thing where it's like I want to tell that story of how I built my business through YouTube, but I also don't
Hmm.
want everybody coming up to me saying like, "Hey, I want to do it. Help
Right.
me do it. I'm going to do what you
Yeah,
did. I'm going to get out of production in a year." When I'm like, honestly, you probably won't. Like,
totally.
you might
Yeah.
build a channel, but you probably won't do. Like, you probably aren't as comfortable with risk as me. You're not as comfortable with like making less money. Like, you got into this because you thought you were going to make a bunch of money, and now you're just trying to find leads somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Here I am just talking
I
about myself. It's my
No, I
podcast.
feel
Whatever.
that. It's one of those things where you like whatever you put out, whatever energy you
Yeah.
put out, you attract. And that's exactly what I meant, we were talking about this yesterday. It's like when I was putting out all of the stuff about like my story, I was attracting
Yeah.
people who wanted to live that story.
Yeah.
And actually very similar to you. I'd be like, are you willing to work 12 to fucking 16 hours a day? Every
Yeah.
fucking day, even on the weekends? Like, are you willing to suffer and, grit through? So, yeah, I feel,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. If you want what I have, you have to like go through what I went through, right?
Right. Yeah, there's no
And
shortcut. There's no
and
fucking
I
easy
don't
button.
and I don't know if you want it. You might not want it
Yeah,
if you
right.
realize like what's
Would not
involved in it.
recommend.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My performance coach, he's actually above me at EXP, and he's in Denver, and he like never turns off. Like I post something on Instagram, and he calls me 2 minutes later, like feedback about it, even if it's like a Sunday. And he's
Damn.
like, "Sorry, man, I never turn off. Like, you can tell me to shut up. Like, you're doing great. Like, whatever." But he's like, he told me the other day, he's like, "I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Like, No, people can't handle a brain that's just like going like this and like squeezing the last drop out of every sponge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that with people as well. So one thing I want to talk to you about is why you're not more active on social media. I know that you kind of go back and forth. I think there's some ways that you could do it to where you would find life in it, though.
I think that's so fun. I would love to talk about this with you. So you probably know this, but the past year and a half,
Yeah.
I was in total burnout mode, and I posted maybe like a total of like 6 times over the past, like very rarely, because of what we were talking about. Like I didn't want to
Yeah.
talk about real estate. I didn't want to talk to newbies. So then
Yeah.
I just like hermited up.
How do you define burnout?
I defined burnout. That's a great question. So I think it varies
Yeah.
on for every person. For me, I knew I was burnt out because the idea of speaking with someone was like nails on chalkboard. And when I say with someone, I mean like literally anyone. I didn't want to be on podcasts. Like I didn't want to go out and like I didn't want to see. I just wanted to like don't fucking talk to me, which is so weird because I actually am an extrovert. I actually do like people.
Yeah.
So to me, I knew that I was in a weird fucking place because of that.
Yeah. Interesting. Socrates, there's a quote. I mean, and I mostly just hear other people quote this. He says, "Wisdom begins with the definition of terms." So usually when somebody uses a term that could have multiple meanings like burnout, I just want to immediately ask, like, what do
I
you
thought
mean
that
by
was so
that?
fun. It's a great question.
Yeah, so you kind of shut down social media after that, and you had kind of built some traction, right, from being on a bunch of real estate podcasts. Now you have a whole bunch of like wannabe real estate investors following you, asking you questions, and
Yep.
you shut down. Now you're kind of back. What's your
Yeah.
goal
Okay.
with social media
I
and kind of how you're building your community?
Dude, okay, so I am working on this currently. It's actually what I'm going to do after we get off this podcast is I'm going to go back through because the movement that I talked about, the think tank, all of that stuff is recent. I made the structural change from the traditional team to an EXP model, you know, back in July of 2021. So, but then I had a year of burnout and I was just like doing enough to keep running. You know what I mean? Like things were churning, but I wasn't like pressing. And it was a couple months ago that this whole, you know, it finally came to me about the movement and entrepreneurs and building actual businesses and helping agents not just live in chaos, but like build structure because I love that shit. I love systems and leverage and talking to people who are hungry and motivated. So anyway, figured out all of that and what the next shift is, which I haven't exactly figured out how I'm going to do it, is presenting that to the world and sharing what I've learned and what I do to build real businesses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like social media is like primed for that right now. Like unscripted kind of direct to camera content is like what you could be doing for that. And I think you'll start seeing it and you'll start liking it is the thing.
And I think you're right. And so if you've been watching what I've been posting lately, it is literally just the interim. I'm filling space until I have this, like I actually figure out my strategy moving forward. And I would love to talk to you about it. Maybe not on this podcast or maybe on this podcast, whatever. But so because we had a fucking challenge. We had one of our Team Sync speakers was talking about social media and just like fucking doing it. And so like in the chat, you know, it's like, okay, we need to do like, and so there's like 10 of us who are in this social media. And so that's why I'm like just posting, you know, what I can. But I'm going to unleash this next. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear it.
I heard Gary Vee say something the other day that I like agree with so much. Like Instagram stories is such a great place to actually like daily vlog. And people watch that kind of stuff. Like if you have like kind of engaging daily stuff, like the same people watch my stories every single day. And sometimes it's like the same stuff every day. And it feels redundant to me most of the time. But then like suddenly somebody asks like, hey, do you have a framework for that after action report you do every night? And I'm like, I do. And I've talked about it so many times. So you obviously aren't watching every time.
Yeah.
Let me explain that to you now in DMs. And then my stories will get promoted to you even more. So it's just kind of this cycle. But for me, it feels so much like better for my mind if I'm creating so much more than I'm consuming.
Interesting.
So then it feels like it's more like an act. It's more like an output of my mind and like my worldview than it is like an input. That's kind of how I see it right now. So I have like benchmarks. So I do 2 posts a week, one kind of industry specific, one more like life and wisdom. And then I do 4 stories every weekday. And I have kind of like a default thing I'll do, like morning routine, workout, like talk to the camera after workout. And I do another 2 like real estate specific where I'll just talk about like my business kind of. I just did something on my story like, hey, I'm shooting this podcast, blah blah blah.
Did you tag me?
No.
Fuck you.
I tagged the episode that I just published last night. So,
I thought it was about me and you didn't tag me. I was like,
it was, and then we'll do another one after. Okay.
gotcha.
No, and I sometimes even like I have an idea for something I want to talk about on Instagram, and I'll just like open the notes on my phone and just like write out a couple ideas, and then I'm like, okay, I've got 6 stories. That's 6 stories for tomorrow.
Okay, question. Are all of these your face talking into the camera?
Not all of them, but most of them. And I love talking to the camera, which is so funny because whenever I started my YouTube channel, I was so nervous about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember my first, I did YouTube for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous. I literally took a shot before my first video. I was so terrified.
For sure.
And now
I felt that way when I started cold calling when I first got my license.
Yeah. Oh, so it's really scary shit. It actually is in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you just get the reps in and you're like, what's the worst they could do? And also no one...
And you realize like awkwardness is the most relatable thing on camera.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And if you want people to relate with you, then just be yourself and be a little awkward. Like everybody understands. Like they don't care.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Come back to you do 2 posts a week. Are you talking about? Are they all reels? Are they all video, or are they like any of it like carousels or actual just images?
Not carousels, but it might be an image. It might be a clip from the podcast with captions where it's a little more like I'm talking specifically about my business, or I'm talking specifically about like something I'm interested in, or talking to somebody about doing cold plunges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even like the cold plunge thing to me is like doing things that hurt and realizing that you're not going to die. Like that's the point of like that clip.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I kind of roll with it. Yeah.
So what if you were me?
Yeah.
What would you do?
I think you have to talk about like
or
the same thing every day for a while, and it's going to feel super redundant, but to the outside, it's just going to look super consistent.
And are you talking about stories or posts?
I'm talking about stories. Yeah, I think stories is like where people like want to see you, and I think what you've done so far, with building 5 pillars and then changing 5 pillars, like a lot of that is like you've been practicing influence, right? Influence and leadership, and now you're just like taking that to a bigger level, and it's like and can I influence these people to like bet on themselves? That's kind of how I would say it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's like the impact I want to make. It's like I want every person that I like have a deep conversation with to feel like they can go like bet on themselves afterward. But I think so. Like mine is like kind of morning routine, which I think you should do. You're a pretty routine person.
I'm such a routine person.
But I like don't have a morning routine, and I thought I didn't. But everybody has a morning routine, right?
Yeah.
You're either like consciously doing it or like subconsciously doing it. And mine's different than I wish it was because I have little kids. Like, yeah, I'm up at 6 with the kids, and it's like then I work till 11 at night, just trying to like get in the last couple things. But all those are very like conscious decisions, and I didn't realize how routine they were until I started like trying to do posts. But I think
that makes sense.
If you just create the minimums, and you're familiar with this in other parts of your life, like what's the minimum you're like able to do? Like, yeah, 4 stories feels like a lot at first, but it's not.
Sometimes it's not, but then I also I share a lot of stories. Like by that I mean share. Yeah, exactly. You're talking about like original content Shelby
Or
content
share it and then do like a talking to camera about it and
about
why
it.
you
Yeah.
shared it.
Gotcha. Yep.
Do you
This is
do
all
you
stuff like,
do you not want to
yeah.
talk to the camera?
Um, I used to not want to. I think I'm okay with it now. Like, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I based on the fucking video I posted, it's terrible. I look literally hideous. And I just was like, fuck it. So at that point, that was 2 days ago, I'm like, okay, I think I'm okay with this now. Because I used to be like, ooh, like I sounded weird. My hair was fucked. Like I
Oh my
wasn't wearing
gosh. If you're like
makeup.
sweaty walking out of the gym, like that's way more relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. Busted ass. I got you, fam.
Yeah.
You look out for my stories now.
No, they'll like it. They really will.
Yeah.
Don't you think they will? Don't you like other people's stories like that?
I'm a big post and ghost girl.
Okay.
Uh, so I really don't. I try not to be on Instagram for a long time. Except I do have like this very recent guilty pleasure type of thing where I've recently become obsessed with Taylor Swift. Like,
Wow.
to like look at me sharing my husband would be like, don't fucking tell people that. No, and
Yeah.
so like now, like my little treat at the end of the day is like I go to like my little search, like your explore page, and it's like all fucking Taylor Swift.
Oh my
So
gosh. Mine
this
is
is
just like
me.
all shoes and watches.
Oh my god, we all have it. Whatever.
Yeah. My video editor, she's in India, and she was like texting me the other day, which you and her are the only two people I text on WhatsApp with. It's so funny to me.
Oh, honored.
But she was like, Taylor Swift is in Tampa. Like, are you going? I'm like, no, I'm not. I would love to, but the tickets sold out in like literally 30 seconds.
Oh my god. Yeah. I would
Three
love to go.
shows.
Yeah. Well, it's only because she's fucking amazing.
She is. She is. It's undeniable, right?
Truly. Yeah. So.
Okay, so yeah, I think just like setting minimums for yourself on social media. And so like a big goal for me is attracting agents. Like if I'm like hosting events or I'm on a podcast or like somebody else talks about me and I'm just like a ghost on social media, like it just doesn't help.
Yeah. Totally.
So after 2 weeks of just kind of being active, it's like literally 10 agents are reaching out to me asking for help.
yeah, which is fucking
It's like
awesome. It is
if
crazy.
this is the
Like,
goal, it works.
yeah, the little bit of effort, like, because we started this challenge probably a month ago now, so I've had like a month of posting one time a day, every single fucking day, and
Yeah.
it is like crazy that I didn't post for a year and a half, and I was like, oh, like no one gives a fuck about what I'm doing anymore, and just
Yeah.
like literally, they're all like right back there, like oh wow, engagement, like messaging and all this stuff. I'm like, damn, this is fucking cool. And now that I don't
Yeah.
feel like nails on chalkboard at the idea of talking to people, I'm suddenly like so excited to talk to people. Like I really am now, which is the huge
Yeah.
difference from the last year.
Yeah,
So-
that's interesting. What about kind of the like dopamine cycle?
I did actually it's funny you say that. My 1 week into the challenge, I made a post.
I saw you post something about that.
Yeah, I made a post about being like, whoa, for the past
Yeah.
year and a half, I haven't posted at all. And now I'm a week back and found myself like with the spare minutes, like grabbing my phone and like trying to refresh, like who likes
Yeah,
my
yeah.
shit. And then that high of when it like does really well and the low of when like, why did no one like my, like, I suck,
Yeah.
But I think that that's like all getting back into the routine and awareness, reflection. And then once
Yeah.
you're aware, you can build the habit of, just fix yourself on the spot correction. Don't grab it. You don't need to,
Yeah.
have a certain part of the day where you're allowed to like check and you go through it all and then you put it back down.
Right.
And just being aware of it and catching yourself. And I think like, I feel much better about it now.
Sure.
I feel calloused.
I saw an article and I haven't been able to find it. I'd love to share it with people. That was like 100 ways to make your phone less annoying. And I like went through it and just changed tons of settings on my phone. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm going to follow this advice and see how it works. Even just the basic thing of like when I pick my phone up, the screen doesn't turn on automatically. So like it's not like in my face as much.
Yeah. You should
I'm
tag
already,
that
like-
article in this podcast.
I can't
'cause
find it. I can't
What the
find
fuck?
it. I've looked for it. I even sent it to somebody. I'm like, hey, can you help me find this? We couldn't find it. But there just like a bunch of, I'll find something like that and link it below. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
did
love that
the
kind of stuff.
turn off the notifications, like there's no notifications. Then moving like all of the social media apps into a
Yeah,
folder off the home screen. So you have to
yeah,
like go and search for it. That was
yeah.
really
That
helpful.
that folder on mine has a cigarette as the icon.
Oh, nice. Like, ooh, be careful. Um, and then I tried the grayscale. I don't know if you've done that,
Oh
but
yeah, I have a
oh,
shortcut for that. Yeah,
I couldn't. I went back. I was like, I need my fucking color hit in my eyes.
yeah. I kind of like it. I like it at night,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I'm really not on my phone at night. Um,
yeah,
cool. So you're building this community. I think social media is a big way to do it.
dude. Totally.
It
Yeah,
is.
and the
I think
podcast.
you being more of a person in front of people and less of like behind a show or being interviewed is like really important.
Thanks, coach. I'm gonna do
I
it.
whenever I'm working out, I work out at like a private CrossFit gym now,
Okay.
and I'm usually the only person there. And so I just like have the doors open and like no music on. I love it. And
You're psycho. Okay, got it.
I want to like talk to the camera between every set. I'm
Oh,
like why do I want to do this? Like and I feel like pulled to it.
yeah.
And I hardly even look like who watches my stories. I do occasionally. It's all the same people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what it is. I reached like the afternoon and I'm like I just have stuff I want to process. I feel like I have a little bit of clarity on a couple ideas and I want to like
Yeah.
talk about them.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
would like to get to, it is one of my goals, like literally becoming crystal clear with the
Yeah.
direction that I want to go. And then going that direction on like the posts, like the permanent things, but then totally right, like showing who I am as a person in the day to day on
Yeah.
my stories. Like I am excited about that and building the habit to where it's like very natural, just like you said.
Yeah. Do you track your food and sleep and stuff like that?
So I don't track in like a specific measured way, but I do aim for 8 hours and I aim to eat at least 80% of the time with the no processed, basically like Whole 30.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like, and I'm decent about it. But why do you
Yeah.
ask that? You track it like
I'm
detailed?
I do. And I kind of go through seasons where I like measure and track everything just
Mm-hmm.
to kind of understand like a new benchmark.
Sure.
But I think that kind of stuff is valuable to share in a story too, like daily.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I drink greens every morning and I like hardly have ever posted about that. But then I realized like, oh, I've tried 6 different kinds of greens. And I know if I started posting about this, people would ask about it. And then it's just like a conversation.
Yeah.
But it's obviously just showing too that I'm like super disciplined and I'm like making conscious decisions and like I don't want to eat vegetables later, so I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about eating vegetables. It's not like that's not that I don't want to eat them. I just don't want to think about it.
Right. Yeah. Knock it
But
out early.
yeah, but I think like that demonstration of discipline attracts people that want to be disciplined,
Oh,
right?
totally. Yeah. And I think that's been one of the things that has, for me up until this point, because when I was, before I took the burnout, I was sharing stories consistently, like at the
Yeah.
gym, up early, all of those things. And I agree. I think that
Yeah.
it is an attraction method for people who want to be more like that.
Yeah, and what's normal to you? Another coach always tells me this. Like my real estate experience is the most normal thing to me, but it's not to anybody else. And you're the same
No.
way. But that's just like your life experience is normal to you and it's not normal to anybody else. You're writing that down?
Yeah. You can hear me say.
Yeah.
I have a couple
Cool.
notes like I'm going to go and implement after this. I'm excited.
Nice. Okay, so your movement, what's the dream outcome of the new 5 pillars movement?
The dream outcome is everyone in the organization feeling really strongly about it, that it is a place that it's a vehicle for them to achieve their goals, and
Yeah.
the value that it provides them brings them feelings of connection and being understood, which is a lot of
Yeah.
things entrepreneurs struggle with because it's very isolating. It can be.
Yeah.
And through that, like, I want people to fucking love it. And we're doing our first Pillars retreat this year in Veterans Day weekend. Historically, we've done like team trips. So like fun trips. So they've
Oh yeah,
all
yeah,
been international so far. Like we go and like hang out in Tulum for a fucking week. But this is the first year where it's already booked. It's a giant Airbnb. There's a max, we've already, it's literally 100% filled up already, which is really exciting. And it's going to be 3 days of, all existing in the same space. You wake up together, you fucking eat together. We're going to do polar plunges and like
yeah,
physical challenges and then learn and mastermind. And like by the end of that, I want to do things like that more consistently. That's the first one. But as we grow and expand, I want to have an East Coast one, a West Coast one, different areas consistently
yeah.
throughout the year. And
Nice.
I want to have like a 5 pillars like conference at some
Okay.
point. So that's kind of the
Nice.
direction. But like the intent is like hyper passionate belief in the organization and in each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. I mean, that's why you're calling it a
I think it's
community and
great.
a movement too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because it's so much more than a business, right? It's so
yeah.
much more than a team.
It's
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 different.
not a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a firm and it's not a team. It is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
its own thing. It's
Yeah.
that I don't. I mean, it might exist, but I don't know of it existing elsewhere. And I feel like it's what's needed for people like
Yeah.
us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like it doesn't matter if it exists elsewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so you kind of got some momentum building this movement, this community, and you brought up with 5 pillars. It was kind of built out of necessity, but you also mentioned that this new thing kind of came to you, um, without sounding too culty about that. Like, what do you mean?
um, it came to me through distancing from the old way of doing business and then reflection about what pieces that I really liked, what brought me energy, who brought me energy, what I
Yeah.
loved talking about,
Hmm.
and then kind of shaped a lot of it around that. In addition to Aaron, again, and Migasagi, his Real Estate Rockstars Mastermind, I think he does a fantastic job. This is where the Pillars Retreat idea came from, of bringing together people and teaching, leading, and providing them ways to better themselves. So that's kind of like vague, but basically it was reflection, time, space, and other experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you were inspired by what someone else is doing and kind of adapted it to your needs. I think
Totally.
sometimes people aren't willing to just take what somebody else is doing and like figure out how it fits theirs, because it usually does. It doesn't have to fit exactly. I think a lot of what you're doing with this movement is actually like giving people permission, right? Permission to like build their own thing, to like figure it out. Like nobody has to be the example for you. You don't have to follow somebody else's model. Like you have permission to like what fits you. Like how much do you actually want to work? Like how much money do you
Totally.
actually want to make and need to make, and what kind of lifestyle do you want to live, without just following typical models of like how it works or what work-life balances should be like or things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. That
I
is
love that.
exactly it.
You're also into you did a triathlon recently, right?
Yeah, I did a half Ironman back in
Half Ironman.
October.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
And then a
That's super
marathon
intimidating.
like 2 weeks ago
Okay.
for no reason at all.
Well, you probably had a reason.
I did have a
Uh,
reason, but it's so out of character. Like the gymnast, I don't know if you're the same way, but like I
yeah.
prefer, body movement type of. I even if I'm gonna lean cardio or weights, I lean weights.
Yeah, me
Like
too. Yeah.
the I suck at swimming. I bought
Oh,
a
I'm
bike
awful
just
at
for the.
something.
Oh my god! I sold my bike literally on the way back home after the triathlon. I was like, never doing that again. But I'm so glad I did it. So it was just what I meant by no reason. I meant like it was extremely out of character. But I am
Yeah.
very glad because they were incredibly challenging, both
Yeah.
of them. So I'm very
I'm
glad to have done
doing
it.
I'm doing my first like long event. I've done like a few like CrossFit competitions and stuff, but I'm doing like a long, more endurance style event. But it's still like kind of CrossFit style, and it's
Okay.
24 hours.
What is it?
It's called a Diesel Day, and it's run by this like former Marine. I'll send you some info about it.
Please, I'll do it with
Um,
you.
You guys would probably love it.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
it,
like, I'm
it's so
already
much.
hooked.
It's so mental, and he's there like
Mhm.
coaching. It's like 10 or 12 people that do it at a time,
Okay.
and he's there like coaching like why you're moving goalposts in your mind and things like that. Like actually like getting in touch with your like making the subconscious more conscious. But he also has like monthly programming where it's like 3 workouts a month, and it's like literally like one of them is 367 kettlebell swings,
Damn.
and then rest for a few hours and then do it again. But he like picked an
Damn.
arbitrary number so you don't, so it's not easy to break up in like 20s or 50s.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So he's like, don't break it up. Like, and he's like, and you get instructions like count by the alphabet and then like record the letter when you take a break.
Wow.
So it's
And
more just like some things to like get yourself out of like breaking things up in chunks or like, pacing yourself. Like, no, just like push yourself and see what happens.
that's very interesting. That's something that that's again very different. So like even I
Yeah.
did some CrossFit competitions too, but like one of my key takeaways from competing in CrossFit was pace yourself the whole time. Like never come out hot.
Yeah, of course.
Like all of it is like the 80% just like hover.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
An inefficient movement. So that is
Right.
the diesel day thing. Like I'm gonna have to look into that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, Brian Shantosh is that guy. He has a podcast as well. He does like super long endurance events, like 200 milers and stuff like that. He
Damn.
also just rode on a crew across the Atlantic Ocean. And
I think
he wanted to like break the world record, and some
yeah.
stuff came up on during, and they kind of the rest of the crew wanted to like adjust their goal, and he was like so mad. He did like a long podcast about that, like how mad he was about adjusting the goalpost.
Oh. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he's a super interesting guy. I think you would really like him.
I
I
think
mean,
I would
he's like
too.
Jocko, but just hasn't tried to get in front of people at all.
Gotcha.
But you hear him talk, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's the same.
Right.
But I kind of like that nobody knows who he is.
Yeah. No, it is. It's always fun. The
Yeah.
obscure, like, because as soon as they're all mainstream, it's like, oh, damn it, now I just go find someone new.
Yeah. Yeah, so my performance coach, he was a Marine, and he was under this guy, like in Iraq.
Okay.
So he knows him really well, and that's kind of how I got introduced to him. But now I can
Very cool.
share him with other people too.
Yeah. Share away. Sounds like
Yeah,
something
so
we
I'll
could
link to
be
that
into.
down below as well.
Cool.
Yeah, you and Drake would be into that, I think.
I think so too.
Into that kind of stuff, right? He did the Ironman with you.
Yeah, the marathon was his idea. It was actually
Okay,
on his birthday, and he's like, I was
nice.
like, "What do you want for your birthday?" And he's like, "Let's run a marathon together." I'm like, "Oh, fuck you, dude," but also okay. Um,
Yeah.
and then the Iron Man, he did that as well. Yeah, but he was a Marine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he would like these people. Well, if he likes the Marines.
yeah.
I'm
It's
like not
yeah,
exposed to military besides like other people, and so it's always kind of fun to me to be around it.
yeah, yeah. I find it interesting now that I've had the separation. Again, that
Yeah.
was another thing. I was like, I never want to be around these motherfuckers again. And now I'm like,
Oh, I bet.
oh, my people.
Now
Oh,
they're your people. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Awesome, Shelby. Well, I'm excited for everything you're building. I'm excited to see you start your own personality cult here,
Oh.
um, or just expand it. Yeah, no, I am really excited for what you're doing because I think it's something that people aren't doing as intentionally or like, I mean, I'm sure it'll make money, but it's not just like a super expensive mastermind that everybody joins because you want it to feel more bought into.
Totally. Yeah,
And maybe
it's
one
free.
comes before the other. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited too. Thank you.
Nice.
Appreciate that.
Well, thanks for joining us today on the Unemployable podcast. I feel like this was like the most scattered interview I've done so far, but
It
I just
was
has
so fun.
a lot of
I
things I
loved
want to talk
it.
about. I
Yeah.
think that's the joy of like doing your own thing. It's like I
Yeah.
can just talk about whatever I want, right?